So in today's video, we are going to be talking about dividing fractions. But before we look at how to divide fractions, we quickly want to talk about reciprocals. When we are looking at reciprocals, we are just flipping our fractions over. So our numerator, which is our top number, becomes the denominator, and the denominator, which is the bottom number, becomes our top number. So for example, for number 1, to find the reciprocal of 3/4 or 3/4, our numerator, which is 3, becomes the denominator, and our 4 becomes the numerator. So the reciprocal is 4/3. For number 2, if I want the reciprocal of 6/5, then my 5 becomes my numerator and my 6 becomes my denominator. For number 3, the reciprocal of 9/10 will be 10/9. Now when we are looking at the reciprocal of a whole number, remember a whole number always has a denominator of 1. So the reciprocal of 7 will simply be 1/7. Similarly, if we want to look at the reciprocal of 24, 24 has a denominator of 1. So our reciprocal of 24 will be 1/24. So now that we have looked at reciprocals, when we are dividing fractions, we do something called KCF, where our K means we keep the first fraction as it is. C means we change the divide sign into a multiplication sign. And we flip our second fraction, which means we are finding the reciprocal of the second fraction. So if I want to work this out, I will keep my first fraction, 3/15, as it is. I will change the division sign to a multiplication sign, and I will flip 6/5 into 5/6. And now I can work this out as a normal multiplication of fractions. So before I multiply through, I'm going to write it like this, and then first check if I can simplify my numerators and denominators. So I'm checking to see if I have any common factors in numbers in the numerator and denominator, and we do have 3 and 6. The common factor of 3 and 6 is 3, meaning both these numbers appear in the 3 times table. So we're going to divide both these numbers by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. I still have numbers in my numerator and denominator that can be simplified. I have 5 and 15 that have common factors, meaning 5 and 15 are both in the same times table, and that is the 5 times table. So I'm going to divide both these numbers by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And now I can rewrite these as 1 times 1 in my numerator over 3 times 2 in my denominator. And now this gives me 1/6 as my final answer. So for number 1, I am going to keep my first fraction as it is, which is 3/4. I'm going to change my division sign to multiplication, and I'm going to flip the second fraction, meaning find its reciprocal, and that will be 2/1. So I can rewrite this as 3 times 2 over 4 times 1. But I'm going to check if I can first simplify before I multiply out. So I have 2 and 4, which have a common factor, meaning they are both in a times table, which is 2 times tables. So I'm going to divide both these numbers by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I can now rewrite this as 3 times 1 over 2 times 1. And this will give me 3/2. Because this is a top-heavy fraction, I can write this as a mixed number, which will be 1 and 1/2. For number 2, again, I'm going to keep my first fraction as 5/6. I'm going to change my division to a multiplication, and I'm going to flip the second fraction into its reciprocal. And before I multiply out, I'm going to check if I can simplify the numerators and denominators. And I have got 3 and 6, which both appear in the 3 times tables. So the common factor is 3. and I can divide both of these numbers by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and I can write this as 5 times 1 over 2 times 2, which gives me 5 over 4. Because this is a top-heavy fraction, it is an improper fraction, I can write this as a mixed number, which will be 1 and 1 over 4. If you do not know how to work with improper fractions and mixed fractions, I will put a link in the description box so you can check that video out. So for number 1, we have a mixed number divided by a fraction. So first I'm going to have to change the mixed number into an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1 gives me 5 over 2. So that is my improper fraction divided by my second fraction. Now I am first going to keep my 5 over 2 as it is, and then change my division sign to a multiplication sign and write 3 over 4 as its reciprocal, which will be 4 over 3. Before I multiply this, I am going to check if my numerators and denominators have any common factors. 2 and 4 both appear in the 2 times table, so my highest common factor is 2. I'm going to divide both of these by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2. I'm now going to rewrite this as 5 times 2 over 1 times 3, which gives me 10 over 3. Because this is a top-heavy fraction, I can write this as a mixed number. So this is going to be 3 and 1/3, and that is my final answer. For number 2, I again have a mixed fraction divided by a proper fraction. So first I'm changing my mixed fraction to an improper fraction, which will be 14 over 3, divided by 1/2. I'm going to keep my first fraction as 14 over 3, change my division sign to multiplication, and write 1/2 as its reciprocal, which will be 2 over 1. Now, because my numerators and denominators cannot be simplified, I do not have any common factors. I'm just going to multiply this. 14 times 2 is 28, and 3 times 1 is 3. And because this is an improper fraction, a top-heavy fraction, we can write this as a mixed number. 28 divided by 3 is 9 with a remainder of 1, and my denominator will be 3. So now we are dividing a proper fraction by a whole number, and it is important to remember that whole numbers will always have a denominator of 1. So I can write my 2 as 2 over 1. So now I can keep my first fraction as it is, 3 over 5, change my division sign to a multiplication sign, and write 2 as its reciprocal, which will be 1 over 2. Now, because I don't have any common factors in my numerators and denominators, I can just multiply my numerators with each other. 3 times 1 will be 3, and my denominators multiplied by each other. 5 times 2 gives me 10, and this is my answer in its simplest form. For number 2, my 3 again is a whole number, so I can write this as 3 over 1. So I'm going to keep my first fraction as it is, 7 over 9. Change my division sign to a multiplication sign and write 3 as its reciprocal, which will be 1 over 3. Again, I do not have any common factors in my numerators and denominators, so I cannot simplify this any further, and I'm just going to multiply through. 7 times 1 is 7, and 9 times 3 is 27. So this is my answer in its simplest form. So this is a worded problem that says Susan baked 3/4 of a cake and wants to share it equally among 5 friends. How much cake will each friend get? So the word share just means that she's dividing this cake. She's baked 3/4 of a cake and she wants to divide it among 5 friends. So we are going to do 3/4 and we are going to divide this cake of hers among 5 friends. So 3/4 divided by 5. So I am going to keep my 3/4, my first fraction as it is, change the division sign into a multiplication sign, and write 5 as its reciprocal, which will be 1 over 5. Now, because I do not have any common factors in my numerators and denominators, I'm just going to multiply through as it is. So 3 times 1 will be 3, and 4 times 5 will be 20. So Susan gives each friend 3/20ths of the cake. This worded problem says that a farmer has 2/3 of a field to plant corn. If he divides the field into 4 equal parts, how much of each part will he use for planting corn? So he's dividing 2/3 of his field into 4 equal parts. So we are going to do 2/3 divided by 4. 4 is a whole number, so it will have a denominator of 1. So I'm going to keep my first fraction as 2/3, change the division sign to multiplication, and write 4 as its reciprocal, which will be 1 over 4. Because I have 2 and 4, which are both in the 2 times tables, that means my common factor is 2, and I'm going to divide both of these by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I can rewrite this now as 1 times 1 over 3 times 2, which gives me 1 over 6. So finally, here are some questions for you to have a go at. So please feel free to pause the video and try these. So for number 1, I'm going to keep 7/8 as it is, change my division to multiplication, and write the second fraction as its reciprocal. I do have 4 and 8 in my numerator and denominator, which are both in the 4 times table, so I have a common factor of 4. I can simplify these. 4 divided by 4 is 1, 8 divided by 4 is 2, and I can now rewrite this as 7 times 1 over 2 times 3. 7 times 1 is 7, and 2 times 3 is 6. Because this is top heavy, I can write it as a mixed fraction, 1 and 1/6, and that is my final answer. For number 2, we've got a mixed fraction. So first, I'm going to have to convert that fraction into improper, which will be 7 over 4 divided by 2/5. So I can now keep 7/4 as it is, make the division into multiplication, and write the second fraction as its reciprocal. So because I don't have any common factors in the numerators and denominators, the numerator will be 35, denominator will be 8, and because this is top heavy, I can write this as a mixed number, which will be 4 and 3 over 8. For number 3, I keep my 5 over 6, I change my division to a multiplication, and I write 4 as its reciprocal, which will be 1 over 4. This cannot be simplified, so I'm just going to multiply. So I now have 5 over 24, and that is my final answer.